All right, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our live webinar. Today is Tuesday, December 15th, and I'm Richard Schoen, coming to you from our offices in Eden Prairie, Minnesota, where winter still has yet to grace us with anything other than warm weather, rain, and sleet. This is a pretty odd winter so far for us. We're hoping we'll have a white Christmas, but stay tuned and we'll find out more. I'll be the moderator today for our webinar titled 5 Reasons to Stop Filling Out Forms by Hand. This webinar will provide answers to some of the top problems companies face when filling out paper-based forms by hand and manually routing them around the office. Hopefully we'll get you thinking about ways to streamline data capture in your company today. We have lots of important information to cover, so let's get started. All right, as I mentioned, I'm Richard Schoen. I'm Director of Document Management Technologies here at Help Systems. I'm part of the Technical Solutions Group at Help Systems, bringing topics like this to our customers and prospective customers. I have over 27 years of background with IBM, Windows and Linux platforms, and managing and delivering forms and documents. My co-presenter today is Greg Schmidt. Good afternoon, Greg. Why don't you give us a little introduction to yourself and tell us about your role here at Help Systems.
All right, thanks, Richard. Again, my name is Greg Schmidt. I'm a 15-plus year veteran inside the document management industry here with the RJS brand at Help Systems. My main focus and specialty is document process and forms management. I'm involved in the pre-sales process team as well, and I help companies equip themselves with ways to automate their document capture and streamline their business processes with using our technology. I also have over a decade's worth of experience in the report and data distribution side for the IBM and also with the Microsoft Windows platform. I'm going to hand it back to Richard, but towards the end of the presentation today, I'll be covering some live scenarios that will cover the forms data capture and document creations and accounts payable and human resources. Richard, back to you.
All right, Greg gave away my agenda already. All right, so our agenda will be relatively short, but hopefully provide a good introduction to paperless forms. We'll provide a short introduction to Help Systems and our WebDocs document management solutions. Then we'll talk about the top problems companies face when using paper-based forms. And then, as Greg mentioned, we'll be providing a short demo on some of our web forms technology and showing you about paperless forms. And then we'll also end with a few minutes of question and answer. Feel free to enter your questions in the chat window as we go, and we'll address them towards the end of the webinar. Select all presenters so the questions are directed to both me and Greg. We'll also plan to complete our session in 30 to 40 minutes, so you have plenty of time to make your next important meeting. And the session is being recorded, so you can share with your other team members within your organization. All right, quick intro to Help Systems. Help Systems has been in business for over 32 years, if I can talk correctly, providing system management, business intelligence, and security solutions for IBM, Windows, Linux, and AIX platforms. The RJS document management products joined the portfolio in 2014 to provide a document management offering. The RJS products focus on helping companies implement paperless process to capture, manage, deliver, and secure their critical documents. Our WebDocs family of products helps companies go paperless by providing several key document management components. If you're planning to implement paperless process in any of your departments, chances are we have a solution that will help, which is a good thing. Quick introduction to the RJS document management solutions. This slide shows some of the core functions of our WebDocs solution set. Our solution set covers 3 core areas, one being document management, which focuses around capturing and managing scanned paper documents, electronic reports from IBM and other systems, manufacturing drawings, as you can see from our motorcycle in our picture, email, inbound faxes, and other electronic documents such as photos, videos, and pretty much anything that can be created in a PC format. On the process management side, WebDocs contains a built-in document routing system to provide the ability to electronically route documents to the right people for review and approval, as well as capture electronic signatures on their documents. Signatures can be captured via our Sign Here desktop software or via our web form software, as you'll learn a little bit about today. And so the documents can be sent out either electronically or internally to be signed. And then we have forms management, which covers 2 distinct but important areas of process within an organization. We have input forms, which we'll be covering today, where we can take any paper-based form and turn it into an online version where data can be captured, or we can simply generate online data-driven forms. It's a great way to eliminate paper forms and capture data right away without rekeying. And then on the other side of forms management, we have output forms, which typically is used to generate high-quality business output documents, such as invoices, purchase orders, statements, bills of lading, checks, pretty much anything that you want to generate as output. And in a lot of cases, we have customers that are using existing products, such as Advanced Function Print and other vendor products, and they're looking for a more up-to-date solution for output forms. As I mentioned, we'll be focusing on input forms. However, if you would like to learn about generating high-quality business output, feel free to reach out and we can connect you with one of our previous webinars or provide a demo to show you some of our output management. All right. First issue, filling out paper forms. Many companies are still mired in paper-based forms. Users often are filling out forms by hand. You have business applications, HR forms, vendor onboarding forms, equipment inspections, and pretty much any paper form that you might have in-house. Form paperwork is typically then manually filed or possibly scanned and stored in a network folder. Then somebody maybe rekeys the data to the appropriate business systems, and then data is possibly entered to more than one system. I have at least one customer that we work with that enters payroll data into 2 distinct separate systems from time cards, and they could potentially automate those processes, and they have. This process of manually filling out forms by hand can be very time-consuming and inefficient. Every piece of paper that you have in your organization that gets filled out can be seen as an opportunity to implement a paperless process. I always find myself, anytime I fill out a piece of paper now, I look at that as a potential business process and wonder why a company with today's technology hasn't implemented that. In your own organizations, you can start looking at every piece of paper the same way. Look at anything that gets filled out by hand and then rekeyed into a business system or scanned as a possible opportunity for a paperless form. Once you start looking at it as a mini business process, you can usually turn that into an electronic online process very quickly. Then we have form accuracy and validation. How often do completed forms need to be checked in and then rechecked and rechecked for accuracy before data is entered into a system? Wouldn't it be nice if there was a way to be able to make sure all the data gets captured on paper the first time? So here's a typical form filling process with most paper-based forms. Person fills out a paper form by hand, they turn it in or excuse me, hand it to someone else to double check. The form is then manually reviewed and then maybe scanned for additional review or placed into a mailbox or in basket for an approver to review. Then that approver reviews the form for accuracy to determine if everything's filled in correctly, and that's where the question of, is everything valid? Do all the columns add up? Were there any errors during filling out that form by hand? Were all the mandatory fields entered? Attempting to manually validate a form for accuracy is very time-consuming as well, and the possibility of making mistakes when entering the data to your business system, or even a second or third time, is relatively high. Also, the number of times the form may need to be corrected could be time-consuming as well. And then, of course, the rekeying process that might be needed if a form needs to be entered into one or more systems. There's definitely room for improvement in this whole process. Often when a form is completed, it needs to be approved by one or more approvers before a decision or action can be completed. Many times the approvers are out of office, working from a remote location, or in many cases on vacation. So the typical process looks kind of like this. Employee, vendor, customer fills out a form by hand, walks it to each approver's office, or maybe they scan and email the form to each person. Each approver then maybe prints and signs and sends back an electronic reply via email, which is then printed and maybe filed in an email folder or even scanned. So a lot of different paper being generated from that process. Documents then get filed or scanned if the company happens to have a document management system like our WebDoc software or something like SharePoint. And then only then can product be ordered or a time-off request be approved or an expense report be approved, et cetera. So think of all the forms that go around your organization today. If it's a purchase, it's possible there is no requisition or purchase order to match against because non-PO items are usually purchased verbally or through credit card or physically by somebody going out to a store and then submitting invoices after the fact. With manual approvals, typically there are little or no system controls or auditing steps in place, especially for non-PO based stuff. Manual approval processes are typically repeated many times throughout the day in an organization. And also your network people get excited when your mail system and your file system storage starts to grow exponentially as documents are scanned over and over and over again. So definitely room for improvement there as well. So then what happens with all this data on these forms that we fill out by hand? So typically the data needs to go somewhere, and in a lot of cases it's simply into a paper filing cabinet. Sometimes it stays on the paper and gets filed. Sometimes the data gets entered into one or more business systems. Chances are there's lots of data entry happening because of the paper-based forms. Typical manual entry goes something like this. Form gets filled out by hand again. Once again, user email or send it around for approvals. Then the department may print the paper for rekeying and then file or scan and save in an email folder. Sounds familiar from our other scenarios. And then someone keys the data again in one or more systems, validation errors, all the things that can happen during that process. By capturing form data one time and automatically placing into the appropriate business system or systems, inefficiency can be fully eliminated. And then this is my favorite. We have the physical filing of documents. So filing seems like such a simple task, and it is really for the most part, but consider it can take anywhere from 30 to 90 minutes to research a phone request from a vendor or an employee or customer if all relevant documents are filed in paper filing cabinets. I've seen scenarios where documents have been filed in large file rooms, hallways in a manufacturing plant where they have checkout sheets, barns, and even large metal shipping containers to free up real estate. So that's kind of an interesting ROI, is that you can free up real estate by actually implementing something like electronic forms or document management. So a typical customer service request might go like this, excuse me, with a paper scenario. Customer calls in and says, hey, I have a question on my account. Rep says, okay, I'll have to go find the paperwork and call you back. An hour or 2 hours later, after several minutes of searching and retrieval and photocopying the document, if the customer needs a copy, the customer gets a call back and now they're out to lunch. So the rep leaves a message, and so the telephone tag begins. Then the pile of paper is stacked on the service agent's desk, and they're at lunch when the next call comes in, and so on. I'm sure we've all experienced this in the past. So if all the paperwork had been filed electronically, the customer service exchange might have gone more like this. Customer request comes in. The rep says, hey, just a minute while I locate your paperwork. Rep presses a button from their business system of record to locate the invoice or the order information, and then they can simply either read the information back or email a copy of the document to the customer or vendor or employee within a couple seconds. So rather than spending hours or minutes to solve a problem, the question was answered in less than 5 minutes. And in some cases, the vendor or customer can answer their own question if the company has a self-service portal, and some of those documents have been put online. So definitely a significant time savings ROI waiting to happen in a lot of our customer service areas of our businesses. So every company really has an opportunity to gain meaningful service opportunity with paperless form technology by looking at the ways that they can turn their paper-based forms into useful information. Lots to think about. So this is our definition of what are paperless forms. So paperless forms are forms that can be filled out via a web browser or a PC tablet or a mobile device such as an iPhone or an Android device. Data can be validated as it's entered for accuracy and completeness. Required fields, value ranges, database lookups and pull-downs can be used to select data from an existing system as well as validate its correctness. Also, paperless form can be typically integrated into a back-end database and application system, so once data is entered, it's usable and actionable without re-entering to more than one system. This is probably the biggest reason to move to paperless forms. If you have a project where you're planning to scan and store documents to get rid of paper, but that doesn't make the data actionable right away, paperless forms can provide that return right away. So rather than looking at doing a scanning project and then having people still rekey information, you might want to consider doing an online electronic form or a paperless form. Also, you can capture data that you're not even sure you need yet. So in some cases, people can generate forms, and you've got metrics on the form that maybe you want to start capturing for KPI analysis and that sort of stuff and trending, but you don't have a business system placeholder yet for it. You can actually put that onto a paperless form, capture that metric, and then later pull that and do reporting for survey points, customer effectiveness, all that sort of stuff. Also, you can capture electronic signatures on these documents as well. So paperless forms need to be able to capture an electronic signature for providing the appropriate approvals and audit controls. Also be able to create pixel-perfect output. So in a lot of cases, let's use an example of an HR form. You want to be able to capture data and be able to generate all the business documents for HR, such as I-9, W-4, et cetera, by filling out government forms automatically. So you capture data online one time and then fill out all the forms that go with that. And then last but not least, a paperless form should typically be able to be filed automatically for easy retrieval. So to further that definition, what is web forms? Web forms is our answer to paperless data capture forms. Web forms is web-based software for capturing form data via any browser. Any paper form can be turned into an online form. A lot of times we can repurpose existing PDF files as well and automatically fill those as output. So there's a lot of nice things that we can do. Data can be read from any database, so SQL Server, Oracle, MySQL, Postgres, DB2, and other databases. So pretty much anything that has a database driver. Web form data can be output into PDF fillable forms. So user can fill out a form and we can capture that into a form template like I was talking about with our HR scenario. Forms can also be managed using our WebDocs forms management software. Forms that need changes or adjustments made to them or need to be routed for approval processing are stored in our WebDocs software, and then they can be routed for approval and other business process decisions that need to be made. Forms are also version controlled when stored in web docs. It's a nice way to be able to track every change that is made to that form. Example of something I was talking recently with one of our customers. Since we joined Help Systems, we have customers that use our robot product for job scheduling, and they want to start doing interactive checklists so they can store data. So there's some interesting things. You know, that was one I hadn't thought of, but it was a great way to be able to tie in, use a job scheduling product and build electronic checklists to be able to capture all of our sign-offs and be able to audit that process as well. So that was kind of an interesting use. Also supporting electronic signatures. We support Topaz devices, so if you've got desktop signature capture or a touchscreen PC or a touchscreen monitor or an iOS device or an Android device, we support electronic signatures in all those formats. And then we also support IBMI and Windows platforms. As part of Help Systems, we have, and RJS, we've always had a large customer base on IBMI and Windows and other platforms. So pretty much any platform that you've got in-house, we can integrate into with the web form software. All right, a couple of typical form capture scenarios just to get you thinking about places you might be able to use this. We've got some customers that simply use a web form to capture data entry and enter or update that info into a database. So this would be a typical scenario when a web form is utilized simply to front end a database rather than capturing an actual document, which is how we typically store those. So we've done some integration with some of the Help Systems products like SQL to be able to capture data from an interactive dashboard. We've also had customers, like I mentioned, ask about creating updatable operational checklists for use in their daily system operations with our robot software. And another use is to be able to fill out a single form with data and then auto-populate several PDF documents like we talked about in our HR scenario. So any place where you have, let's say, a sales deal packet or something that's driven by a checklist where you may need to assemble multiple documents, but you only want to fill out that data once or actually pull data in from a system, it's a great way to use a web form as really a data capture vehicle and then be able to auto-populate document packets on the backside of that process. Also pre-populating a form and sending out URL links to complete the form. We call those PURLs or personal URLs. So let's say you've got an example where you send out a link to a new employee to complete paperwork at home with their spouse, and then they can submit the forms. And then on start day, the paperwork can be completed and all the other I-9W4 and other paperwork can be automatically created once we've captured their signature. So another use is pre-populating a form with data based on an order or an invoice or a work order or a job number and then completing the form. So it's a nice way to be able to send out a form via browser and then on a mobile device pre-populate a service order or a service ticket or something like that that can be completed in the field and then submitted. And then also we have the ability to fill out a new form such as a purchase request or a business application form where data is simply captured and routed to the appropriate person. And then we can also fill out and capture a form in our WebDocs forms management software, as we talked about, if we need to be able to capture all the changes and make sure that that form is audited as it's been filled out and captured. And then finally, a new form can be populated and stored in a temporary folder on the web form server so that it can be opened, completed, and submitted later. So example of that, another HR example, might be a time card where at the beginning of the week you start a time card and then you want to fill out every day your time and then you hit suspend and you want to hold on to that form but not actually submit it till the end of the week. So it's a great way where you can combine the use of a personal URL to send out a secure personalized URL to the time card. The user can fill it out all week long and then submit it at the end of the pay period. So a lot of great uses for web forms in terms of those and a couple of good examples. We talked about the devices, so any Windows desktop, laptop, tablet, you've got low-end tablet devices now, Linux, Mac, you can support that as long as they have a browser, iOS devices such as iPhone or iPad or Android tablets, phones or phablets, which are kind of the mixed phone tablets can be used. And then Winbook and other vendors now on the Windows side offer Windows 8 and Windows 10 tablets that are 7 inches that cost about $59. So a lot of times people were spending hundreds or thousands of dollars to buy tablets, but now you've actually got Windows-based devices that go anywhere from $59 all the way up to $500 or more if you wanted to use a Microsoft Surface device or something like that. So device landscape's always changing, so let us know if you're thinking about doing a paperless forms project and using a Windows-based tablet, and we can always tell you what our current favorite is because it literally changes monthly with new devices coming on the market. All right, a couple of customer success stories. So Illinois Fair Plan, they're a not-for-profit insurance agency, and so we used a web form for them. I think we created about a 4 or 5 page complex insurance application form. So their users typically fill out the application form, and then the data is stored, or actually the form is stored in our WebDocs software, and then we actually extract the data from the forms and actually create information in their COBOL-based insurance system. So it's a nice kind of way to be able to fill out an online form, capture the document, and then also repurpose that data into one of the business systems of record. Also, Kimray was their manufacturer of control equipment and in oil and gas around North America, and they used our web form solution for doing an HR onboarding project where they were creating HR documents, and they use Optimum Solutions on their IBMI as their HR system. So we built some hooks into the Optimum Solutions product and tied into their HR system as we went along. All right, finally, next up, Greg's going to give us a short paperless web forms demo, and you can see the software in action. Greg, I'm going to want you to go ahead and take over, and while Greg's demoing, I'll open up our poll as well. We've got a short poll, and you can actually fill out the questions on there if you don't mind, and we'll share the results in a few minutes during our Q&A section. And then please make sure to continue to enter your questions as we go along. Greg?
All right. Can you hand control over to me, Richard?
Yes, I will. I think you can just say share your screen, and it should.
That would be a negative.
Okay, so if I'll make you presenter. All right, there you go.
There you go.
Okay.
There we go. All right. Like I said earlier, I'm going to be covering in a live demonstration here today just a few scenarios around the forms and data capture process and some document creation options that we have inside of the product. I'm only going to be covering two processes today, but the uses are endless. Like Richard said earlier, any paper-based form can really be turned into a web form so you can enforce the business process and the data entry on the form. And I'll show some of that in the couple scenarios here. But the first scenario that I'll be showing is around the purchase requisition process. We'll talk about some mobile and full version form features that's part of the solution. And the second scenario is around the human resources onboarding process and even the employee self-service side of things. So I'll cover some of that process here. And also today, forms, I'm going to be showing from today, I'm going to be showing it from our web forms portal, but like Richard also said earlier, you can email links to forms, you can have it on public websites, internal portals and stuff like that. But so it's really just dependent on different scenarios on how you need to access them. So the first form here I'm going to show is around the web docs, what we call our web docs for AP process, but this is a purchase requisition process. This one is with a username and password in the front so you can securely access that. And the nice thing about not just securely accessing, but entering in user information, we can fill out forms and pre-fill data dependent on the user information we see. So the nice thing about a form like this, you see that there's two different versions of this form, but really it's the same information. So if I go to the full version of the form, it's a very linear-based form with all these different sections in it. So now if I go back to that form and go to more of the mobile form, you will see that the mobile form is more wizard-driven kind of feel. It gives sort of that bite-sized chunks of information. And the nice thing about this kind of process here, as you'll see here, I can fill in some of this information or have it auto-created inside of here, but I can also retrieve information from databases. So if I can, if I put the vendor information, I can say find vendor, and it can start to fill out information for people. So it's more of a retrieval process from the database. And there might even be a process around, is the vendor, is it an approved vendor, is it a new vendor, so you can actually start a vendor onboarding process as well. And you'll see once I go into the next button, it carries that data along throughout the process. This is where you can have entry, so you can have a form be very dynamic in the form. So you can select stuff, and even data might come from databases, your ERP, your financial system. We have a lot of customers that have GL pull-downs and stuff like that where they can select GL account information and different inventory items that they might have as well. But if it's not more of an entry side of things, you can also, we have a lot of customers that get POs from customers or quotes from customers, and they'll attach them right to the web form itself. So all the data entry and everything is, you can put inside here. And you can also, again, expand the form if there's multiple attachments that need to be applied to the form. You can do routing as well. So routing can be, usually routing is a predefined option that you do here, so you would normally not have a routing screen where you can select from, but you can be more defined in the background to enforce that process. Because we can look at who the person filling out the form is and then who their manager is as well. And then from this standpoint, we can submit the document at this point, and then we'll go through the workflow process that it was defined into. The next scenario I'm going to show here is sort of similar to that process, but now it's around the auto population of the document as well. So in this case here, this could be an internal portal that someone could go to, or internal link that someone could go to, so they could fill out the form. And again, this form can be very linear-based, or it can be more of a mobile, or more of a wizard-based or mobile-based form kind of look and feel. And this one's the same way. So we have some customers that are doing more self-service kind of stuff, where they need certain people to fill out information again during the year. So they can come into a screen like this and then pre-populate with their employee information or employee number, and then populate the employee information. So if they need to update and change information, they could do an update or change in here as well, or notify of a change, so that inside the process, someone can go back in and make those changes in the system. So we can do it in many different ways. And again, filling out forms. So in this case here, I have it broke down to like I-9 and W-4 information, but you'll see that the header information only applies one time. I don't have to fill that out multiple times. So you can drive them through the process, and you'll see here, I won't fill out all this information here, but you can drive them through the process and bring them to different screens to fill out the information. And another wonderful part about the web forms process here is that you can enforce the processes behind the scenes, and you can also enforce data entry. So if you know it's an alphanumeric character or a field, or if it's a phone number you're looking for, or date format you're looking for, you can enforce that inside the form itself at the field level. And you'll see also here, we can do document generation. So after the process happens, maybe you put that on a workflow route after someone sends that out, and then internally the HR department might get this process, or get this here, where they can actually review the information, and then they can also select what forms they need to fill out. So dependent on the information, and this can be automatic too, so dependent on the information, it might be the I-9 and the W-4 that I need to fill out. So in this case here, I can fill out those two documents, and we can have those documents sent in the background and populate those documents that have been downloaded from the government website at that point. And in this case, I emailed them to myself here too, so you'll see the email pop in with those two documents. Or in a normal process, we can email them to the individual and then archive them in our DMS system as well, so our web doc system in the background. So you do have a lot of different options to be able to do that. And you can do approve route. Maybe you need a manager to review something before you get something filled out, or another individual. You can do that directly from here as well. All right, that concludes the demo portion of the webinar. I believe we're going to be moving on into some of the questions now. Back to you, Richard.
Yes, sir, you are correct. All right. Got a short screen here. There we go. All right. Yeah, WebEx always makes you redo everything after you go through there. Let's see, we need our polling panel. All right, perfect. So quick, we'll go through the polling results real quick just so everybody can see what we got for answers on it. So our first question was, which of these is true about your organization's use of paperless forms? So we're kind of split between considering using a paperless forms product, and I have a project starting very soon. So it's kind of interesting that people are starting to think about this technology, so hopefully this is the right group to be here at this event. And then I got a few in both human resources, accounts payable, AR, shop floor, delivery orders, order processing, and then one other. So it'd be interesting to know what the other use is, but I'm sure that it'll be a valid use if there's a paper-based form around it. And then, does your company have mobile users who could benefit from online and mobile forms technology? We're about split 50-50 on that as well. And then, does your company have a document scanning project on tap? for 2015 and 2016. We got about a third of you that said yes, and a few said no, and we got a few no answers in that. So definitely interesting. Okay, got a couple questions here. There we go. This is actually a valid question. How much training, because I always get this question every time we do a demo, how much training is involved to be able to create a web form? So we typically offer what we call mentor-based training, which means it's typically a 3-day class, and we focus on training your internal team on form development using a project that we've already identified, because it's nice to be able to work on a real project and actually work on implementing one of your own forms during that process. So also our services team can assist in building new form templates and implementing new processes as well. Because sometimes a customer may or may not have staff to do the implementation, but they want to put some process in place, build some automation and some paperless process, and our team can implement that as well. This one says we are a service company, and sometimes our techs will start a service ticket but not be able to finish before they leave the customer site. How is this handled in web forms? And I talked about this a little bit, but if a service technician, let's say you've got a service ticket form, they fill out a new form document but can't finish, we have an option that allows you to suspend the form and process with all its data intact. So basically they can come back later and pick it up and complete the form, or they could forward it to their dispatch or their accounting team to complete the service ticket. It's a great way to be able to hand off active forms between departments before they are submitted to document management software. Also, if I'm using web docs to capture scanned documents, this is a good one. Can I also capture forms and reports in the same system? It's a good question, because web docs really is kind of a multifaceted product. It allows you to store pretty much any type of document, so the system can be easily configured so each department and area of business can store, manage, and use their own documents as needed, which includes purchasing, accounts payable, receivables, shipping, order entry, customer service, HR, manufacturing, engineering, QA, and contract management. So pretty much any department can be set up within the system, and each department uses their own documents, yet only the people that need to access the documents from that department have access based on security. So we often refer to web docs as a document management system or a forms management system or a report management solution when we have people that are just capturing and archiving reports, depending on how they're planning to use the software. But we support all of those things. All right, we have one more here. You mentioned form version control. Does that mean I can see who made the changes to each version of a form? Absolutely. If a form document is managed within web docs, all changes are tracked and stored within the web docs repository. So all form changes, any signatures that were applied, any things that were deleted from the form. So this includes an audit of each user that made the changes. Also, it's a great way to be able to do a sign-off audit or on a checklist where multiple people need to add their signature to a form. So a signature to us can be an automatic IBMI or Active Directory user ID stamp, or a physical signature like we talked about, where if you want to sign and actually store a physical signature with the document, you can do that as well. So there's about a handful of different ways that you can do signature capture within your forms, and then all that is version controlled within web docs. All right, I think that's about all I'm seeing right now for our today's purposes. So we're just over 30 minutes, so good timing. We appreciate, thanks for attending our webinar today. We hope you learned some helpful information about allowing your company to start thinking about moving towards paperless forms technology and stopping filling out forms by hand. If you have a chance, please visit the IBMI Market Survey link at the top of this slide and fill out our annual survey. I think it's still open, it may not be, but last year we had over 350 of your IBM peers complete the survey, and results will be published in early 2016, so you can learn what others are doing in their IBMI environments. Also mark the date for our 2016 user conference titled Shift IT, which will take place here in Minneapolis from June 20th to 23rd. You can go to helpsystems.com/shiftit or reach out to your sales rep and they can provide registration information. We look forward to connecting with you face-to-face in 2016. And of course, if you have any additional questions on our paperless forms technology, please feel free to reach out to our sales team, Greg or myself, and we will be happy to address your questions or provide a more in-depth technical demo on any of our technology products. You will also receive a link to this recording so you can share this webinar with those in your company who weren't able to attend today's session. And once again, we thank you for your time today. Have a great day and enjoy the rest of your week and your holidays.